our bodies, that have the ability to interact with the world around you. Now, if you can get a grasp of that, if you can sort of say, I can kind of see that. It's kind of like, for a minute, I'm not going to question it too much. I'm going to go with Rick's idea that if I get in a car and I can go 60 miles an hour, that I'm not the car. Well, I'm going to go along with the idea that my awareness is inside of this body, and that awareness may be able to be outside of that body at some point. Let's just take that as a given for the moment without questioning it too much. The thing that's really important is the next step, if you can accept that. The really important one to me is the next step, and that's to decide which comes first, or which is the main component. See, a lot of people believe that they have a soul or an essence or a spirit that resides in their body. They're okay with that. They understand, that's a fairly common thing throughout many cultures and religions of this world. But if you listen to the phraseology that people use when they talk about it, they say, I have a soul. It's like something extra. It's like, there's me with my story and my body and my personality, and that has a soul. In reality, it's the other way around. Because without that awareness, that spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, the other wouldn't exist. So really, we're all awareness that happen to have a body. It's literally the other way around for the way most people think. So if we focus on the idea that we are all just this essence, this awareness, and that awareness isn't aware until it can manifest itself through something. Now, awareness has no physical properties, let's say. That's what we're told by people that have looked into these things. And again, I'm taking things that I've read, things that I've learned, things that I've thought about, and I've experienced on some type of level that makes it feel real to me. And I'm trying to share that back in the hopes that this might spark a self-inquiry in you. You may end up in a completely different spot than I did as far as your conclusions based on this. I'm just asking you to kind of look in a different way so that you might expand the way you see the world. And that will manifest in you through that personality, through that story, through this body that you have, in a particular way that's very specific to you. You're not going to believe what I believe, but you might open up a little bit to understand your place and purpose a little more than you might now by considering some of these ideas and some of these teachings that have been around for centuries. I really believe these things have just been laying there. People have been saying these things over and over in so many different ways, and nobody listens. Nobody takes them to heart. They nod their head and they go, yeah, that's right, and then they forget about it. And then they don't make it real in their life. I mean, even in Christianity, what did Jesus say? Jesus says all we are is love. Well, love's just another word for awareness as far as I'm concerned. It is something that when it has the ability to come out through some physical manifestation, that it animates us and it makes us who we are. The awareness that does that, though, has no separate self. And that's probably the difference between Eastern and Western thought. In Western thought, we focus on the idea that we have a soul. The soul is considered to have a personality. It's like it's my soul. And my soul is in me, and when it leaves as an entity. And that entity goes somewhere and lives somewhere else in a soul environment. in some type of other dimension, if you will. It's a spirit that has form and probably looks just like me when it leaves, you know? I'm just going to be like Casper kind of when I leave, you know? And maybe that's true. I don't know. But I do know that in Eastern thought, it's thought of as sort of the next level up and saying, well, you know, maybe that's true for a while, but there is another level to that where that essence actually has no form, that it is one awareness. And the one awareness, when it enters into a body or a tree or a plant or an animal, it becomes that. It starts to think out through its ability to perceive the world around it, the physical world. So, if you get a sense of this, or if you somehow by playing around with this, it starts to make a little bit of sense to you, at whatever level it does, it starts to make you understand a little bit more about kind of the way things work. It's like, you know, I love all these catchphrases that we have throughout our culture and other cultures, and they change over time. But, you know, nowadays, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, we're all one. You hear that all the time. We're all one. And everybody again nods their head sagely and says, of course, we're all one, except that I'm me as well. And you are. I mean, this is kind of like, I've been trying to think of a good metaphor all week for this, but it's like levels of I want to say solidity or physiology, excuse me. It's like if you imagine awareness being at sort of the top of the heap here, where everybody is one. We're all made of the same awareness. And now as that awareness starts to come down and become a person, the closer it gets to being a person, the more contained it becomes, the more self-focused it becomes, until a point where it can look out and see that there's another. And once it sees another, it starts to think that it's separate, because there's me and then there's the other. When in reality, I believe, it seems to me, one of my favorite sayings, is that the awareness in me and the awareness in you is the same. It's just that the awareness is looking at another point of awareness and going, that looks different than me, than my perception. It acts differently. It does these things that I don't do. It seems to be separate. But it's only separate because it's functioning through a separate object, which is another body, another experience, another story.